Okay, this morning on Story Time, I'm back working on the wife's LS again. But in the last episode, I'm sure y'all saw where I dismantled the Tahoe, took the LS out of it. Well, it reminded me of a story from a state trooper because the guy that showed up to buy the wheels, I'll go back and insert a clip of walking by in the wheels. They saw a picture of the wheels and decided that he had to have them. So the trooper came from West Virginia, and he came and bought those wheels, and we started swapping trooper stories. And it reminded me of what my buddy John did one morning when we were carpooling. Now, we both lived about 3 blocks from each other. So we carpooled every day. One week it was my turn to drive. One week it was his turn to drive. And when it was my turn to drive, John would get in the car, basically look over at me, grunt, go morning, and go to sleep for the 45-minute ride to work. But when it was John's turn to drive, he would pull up, I would get in, he'd grunt at me, morning, and then he would sleep drive to work. He wouldn't talk, wouldn't do anything, he would just sleep drive. He was functioning. John didn't generally function until he got to work and had his Dr. Pepper or his Coke. In the later times it was Coke. But this morning, got in, we're riding to work. And in normal John fashion, get on the interstate, put it in 5th gear, click the cruise control on, and just steer down the interstate. Not saying anything, not moving, just steer on the interstate. Click cruise control on, go, autopilot. It's kind of like a Tesla before Teslas ever came out. But we're going down the road, and for the locals watching this video, they'll know where Dabney exit is for the college on I-64. And they were doing construction. Now, it was one of the great mysteries of VDOT. What they were doing is they were taking the dirt out of the median, scooping it up, and dumping it somewhere else and bringing dirt back. Now, you would say, oh, it was because there was an accident and there was a spill and there were some hazardous materials and they're removing the dirt. Now, mind you, we traveled that road every day. We saw it every single day. There was no wreck. For some reason, they just decided to tear up the median, take the dirt somewhere else, and bring in new dirt. Now, what that does is when they're doing construction, puts the interstate down to 1 lane. And as many construction zones, they put up cones and signs a mile or 2 before you ever get to the actual construction zone. So, again, we're on the interstate. John, sleep driving. And we're cruising down the highway. Not talking, just cruise control on. We get to where the construction is. John doesn't click off the cruise. And I'm sitting in the passenger seat, kind of just hanging out, seeing the signs. I'm like, yeah, he'll slow down when he gets there. Keep cruising, keep cruising. We go by the Lowmore exit. There's the signs, still cruise control on. We get almost to the Dabney exit. We're now merged over. Cruising. important part of the story is they're replacing the grass by this point. They've dug up all the old grass. They're now replacing with new grass, new sod. And they're carrying the sod on a forklift. Now, forklift, as many of you know, they aren't exactly the speediest thing in the world. Well, forklift's going down the interstate carrying an entire pallet full of sod. And he's cruising at Mach 4 miles an hour going uphill on the interstate carrying a pallet full of sod. So we come flying along. John still hasn't clicked the cruise control off. And I'm beginning to wonder at this point. I'm like, well, he's going to cut the cruise off. He's going to cut it off. And we're already in the construction zone. Not just the one lane they've merged you over. We're actively in the construction zone. And about the time I'm looking ahead, because I always look at construction sites. I'm always interested in what machinery, what tools are they using, how many trucks do they have. All that interests me. I want to look. So I'm looking about a half a mile ahead of us. And I see something that is not a contractor truck. It's not another forklift. And it's not another piece of machinery. It is none other than a Virginia State Trooper car setting in the construction zone. And about the time I point at John, and I'm like, John, there's blue lights flashing. They turn on. They turn on in time that John had time to wake up, turn the cruise control off, downshift to 5-speed, and pull in front of the cop car. Literally, he didn't have to come get us. All John did was pulled over in the construction, pulled over in front of the cop car. So, I'm like, I said, I tried to tell you, but the lights went on. We're trying to explain. Well, the trooper comes up to the car and says, license or registration. John fumbling around. He hands him his license. And I'm fumbling around in the glove box trying to find a registration because I don't know where it's at. It's not my truck. So we find that, hand it over. And the trooper, now mind you, from me sitting in the passenger seat, all I can see is the trooper, from here to here out the window. I can't see his face. But I'm looking at his ticket book. Okay? He's holding the ticket book and he has Sprouse's driver's license on the clipboard. And he turns, he looks at Sprouse and he says, Mr. Sprouse, do you know that you passed a forklift at 72 miles an hour and you missed him by 2 feet? And Sprouse, in 100% honest reaction, because Sprouse was sleep driving, Sprouse honestly looked at the trooper, straight-faced and everything, and went, forklift? What forklift? He never saw it. He was sleep driving so much that he never saw the forklift we passed. We buzzed him, and John never noticed it. So the trooper now, his ticket book is shaking. He is mad. He is angry. I can see the papers shaking. And I'm sitting on the other side going, oh, speeding. We were above 70. because speed limit was 65 back then. I was like, we were above 70. We're in a construction zone. You know, I'm thinking, I'm doing the math. I'm adding $250 construction. However many mile an hour over, you know, I'm doing the math. I'm trying to see how big this ticket's going to be. And the trooper goes, I'm going back here and I'm going to write this ticket for speeding. And John goes, okay. The trooper takes about 3 steps and comes back, looks at John and goes, and for God's sakes, put your seatbelt on. And walks back to the car. So John casually slides the seatbelt across, and we start, you know, kind of laughing because John was like, there was a forklift? And he was 100% serious. He did not see the forklift. And the trooper comes back, and he writes John a ticket. Now, he cut him a massive break. I will say, for as angry as he was, I thought John was going to get every infraction known to man. I thought he was going to get a ticket for the seatbelt, you know, a ticket for a left turn signal not functioning, you know, a failure to yield. I mean, I thought he was going to get everything. But the trooper comes back, gives him a ticket for 7 miles an hour over the speed limit, as if it wasn't a construction zone at all. Gives John the ticket, and we go on. Now, you'd think that would be the end of the story. But no, we told this story several times. Well, it just so happens that the trooper's daughter is a hygienist at the local dentist office. So I'm in there getting my teeth cleaned. Laying in a chair, you know, how was your day? How's the wife and everybody going? You know, they ask you 900 questions and you can't possibly answer coherently. But all of a sudden, the daughter of the trooper, the other hygienist, she's not mine, she comes running in the room and goes, I saw you were on the books today. I had to come steer the story about my dad. And I had to ask her, I was like, well, who is your dad? I didn't know the connection. And she says, my dad's the trooper that pulled Sprouse over. I was like, oh, okay. And I at first didn't know if she was mad about the story, laughing, but I found out that she was laughing. She thought it was hysterical. But she said she asked her dad, and he doesn't remember any of that happening to, you know, any of the pulling over, forklift, construction zone, anything. And I told her, I said, you know, I said, how wild and crazy is your dad's job that the story of us getting pulled over for 72 miles an hour passing a forklift blends in on his memory that he doesn't remember. So, in honor of the trooper giving him the break, the story today was dedicated to the trooper that cut Sprouse a break when he desperately needed one. He desperately needed a break on that day. So, what made me think about that story was West Virginia, a Greenbrier County trooper, showed up, and the moment he showed up in a GMC truck, you know, all decked out, mud down the side of it, I knew we were going to get along just fine. So he bought the wheels, and we stood in the driveway for 30 minutes, swapping stories. You know, he's telling what he did as a trooper, and us telling our interactions with the trooper. So, that I thought I would share with y'all this morning, that not every time you get a ticket is it going to be a tragic event. It could turn into an epic story. So, all right. We'll share our stories with the deputies later. Today's episode was for the salute to the state trooper. And as always, thank you, Lord. Thank you for today.